Hi folks, for this next lesson we are going to be looking at circular features again and introducing a couple new concepts, one of which is depth and one of which is a BC or bolt circle. The other thing is we are going to move from a 3-view orthographic drawing to a 2-view orthographic drawing. And here's the example we're going to be using. It's called a slide bushing. And as you can see, it's a circular object and it's got a protrusion at the front. It's got various holes, and it's also got something called a 74 BC, and we'll get to that in a second. But this is the one that we're going to draw to demonstrate some of these new concepts. The reason that we're going to use 2 views, we're going to use a front view and an end view for this drawing. And the reason we're going to do those 2 views is because if you think about it, if you look at this object from the very top, or if you look at it from the bottom, or if you look at it from the right side or the left side, it's actually going to look the same, at least very close to the same from any one of those angles. So drawing 2 out of those additional angles or views is not really helpful. The only 2 helpful views for this are going to be the front view, and you can pick any of the others, but traditionally you'll see in drafting, you'll see the end view. So we're going to take this object, draw the front, and then we're going to spin it toward the left so that the nose is pointing toward the left for our end view. And that should be sufficient to give the viewer enough of an idea about the measurements and the shape and the contours of the object in order to replicate it, whether they do it in pressed steel or iron or cast iron or whatever it is they're going to build this piece out of. So it's a circular object, so when we're doing our front face, let's start with a big plus sign in the middle. I've already taken the liberty of creating a new drawing, and I will call it slide bushing. Make sure that changes. Good, slide bushing. I've titled appropriately, so let's hit our construction lines, and we'll start with yellow. I'm going to do some X lines, and I want my front view to be somewhere on the right side, so I'll just start here. Remember, we can hide or change our title block if we want and whenever we want. I'll just turn it off for now. No need for it to get in the way. And then let's start drawing circles. Usually when we draw circles, we're going to use our object layer, and this is no exception. All right, so let's look at the big outer circle of this thing. Should tell us somewhere what that measurement is. It looks like it has a diameter of 102. So let's go back to our drawing. Let's draw a circle, diameter 102, so that's a B space 102. Okay, so that's about how big the object's going to be right there. And we've got some other circles we can draw here too, so let's see what they are. We've got a bolt circle. Now a bolt circle is a construction circle, and the purpose of a bolt circle is to give you a consistent distance from the center of a circular object in order for you to place things like these 4 holes that are going in here. Every radius from a center point of a circle is equal distance to all other radii from that point, which means if we use a bolt circle, we can be guaranteed that each one of these holes is the same distance away from the center. And that's the whole point of it. So that's going to be a construction line. We need a 74 bolt circle, which is going to be a construction line because we're not actually drawing this, we're just using it. And then we also notice that we've got this little nose piece which has a diameter of 48. So I've got a 74 bolt circle or BC, and I've got a 48 diameter nose on this thing. So let's go draw those. Go to construction layer for that 74 diameter bolt circle, so that's B74. And then it was a 48. And this one is an object line, you can see it, so C for circle. Circle, go. And this one was diameter 48. Make sure you're hitting the D in there if you're doing diameters, otherwise it's going to draw radius. You don't want that. So that's going to be the nose piece, and then in the nose piece, I mean, you can really go a bunch of different directions here as to what you want to do next. But inside that bolt piece, there's a centered square that's 20 by 20. Why not draw that right now? We know that that is going to be on our object layer, and because it is a polygon, right, it's a number of sides, we can use the polygon tool, and we can put it dead center, enter the number of sides, so 4, And then we could center it, and then we need to decide, is this going to be inscribed in a circle or circumscribed about a circle? So remember, if it's going to be across the flats, which this is, it'll be 20 across the flat areas, not across the corners. If your measurements are across the flat areas, you want this circumscribed about a circle. Oh no, sorry, that's a lie. You want it inscribed. Nope, you want it circumscribed, right? Because you want the circle inside it so that the diameter of the circle goes from the very top to the very bottom. So you want a circle with diameter 20, and you want the square circumscribed about the circle. Circumscribed just means outside, right? So we're going to have this circumscribed about a circle, and then we can manually do our measurements, but we just want to make sure we get the angle right. We want the angle to be straight up and down or left and right, doesn't really matter. And then we need to do the radius of the circle. Now, if the diameter of the circle is 10 or 20, that means the radius must be 10. So let's put that in there and let's see if that looks right. That does look right, and we can confirm it just by grabbing our annotate tool quickly and saying, hey, is that 20? Let's zoom out. It is 20. So that square feature looks to be good. And let's see what else we can do. Okay, now we could do the bolt circle stuff. Why not? We have the bolt circle at 74. We know that where that is, but what we don't know is where these center points are. So we see these angled lines. We need those. And they tell us that those are 45 degrees apart. So we can actually just use the circle array tool for this, or we could bake one circle and then copy it around. Because the original one's on an angle, you can use the polar array tool, but it's probably easier just to draw one and copy the rest. If the first circle was, up here and it was straight up and down, it's a little bit easier to do the array. Okay, so I'll try it both ways. I'll see if I can make it work nicely with the array tool, and if I can't, then we'll go to the old-fashioned way. We know we need some construction lines here, so I'm going to draw some X lines. We know that they need to be 45 degrees, so this will take care of 45 in that direction, and this will take care of 45 in the other direction, which means that where these yellows intersect with the red, that's where our circles are going to be. So let's draw them. We need to know how big the circles are. They are diameter 13, and it says there's 6 holes. Now you'll notice there's only 1, 2, and 1 hidden, 3, 4. It's also referring to these circles here, but we can't see those yet. So we'll just focus on these 4 on the outside, diameter 13. So let's circle tool, D, diameter 13. So circle, space, diameter, circle, center point, there it is. And diameter is D space 13. There's our first circle. And now we can copy these around. I'm just going to quick try the polar array tool to see how it does with an offset circle. Okay, so I'm going to go to our polar array. So there's our array. Our array is going to be polar. Center point of the array is there. And now how many items do I want? I want 4 items. Okay, no, it did a good job. As long as you have the first one selected when you use the polar array, it will know that it should be offset from whatever this angle is. So instead of drawing the circle, the first hole straight up, and then doing one there and there and there, it recognized that I had mine off center. And so every 90 degrees, it would do another circle. 90, 180, 270, and then back to 360. So that worked fine. Alternatively, you could have just drawn one, copied it from the middle, paste, paste, paste. But I mean, array is probably the better tool there. Easy to copy and paste 4 circles, but what if you had to copy and paste, 100 circles around this hole? You certainly wouldn't want to do that. You'd want to use the polar array for that. Okay, so let's see how we're doing here. I've got those, got that, got the outside. We've got these cutouts here. I might wait just a second to do the cutouts because I want to draw some construction lines over to help me with my end view. So if I'm going to grab a new construction line here, new color, and I'm going to draw a line there, and I'm going to draw a line here. Oop, missed that one. Line there. And I'm also going to draw a vertical line right here just so that I can help space out my second view. So my second view needs to be over here. I'm going to put a little gap in there, so I'm going to offset. Let's try let's see, this was 20. This distance was 20, and that actually looks pretty good. So I'm going to offset 20 from this going this way. And then I'm going to draw a couple more lines just to give me an idea of where all these pieces are. So I'm going to go to, let's see, go to the light blue con line. And I could make these construction lines X lines, but I think I'm just going to draw some regular lines over here. So I've already got the top line. I don't need the bolt circle line. I do need the top of the bolts. So I'll do those in a second, but I definitely need the nose. So that's the nose. That's the bottom of the nose. This is the edge of the square. This is the other edge of the square. And what else do I need? Not much else. Now we're going to have these features up here that we're going to have to figure out. And we're also going to have to bring the circles over. Probably not the worst thing in the world to bring those over now. So line straight up. Circle. Line straight down. Edge of the circle. And then I'm going to use a blue line for the center of those holes. So this is the center of the hole, and I'll just bring that out. Make sure that it's not at an angle, which this one is. Try that again. Center of the circle, straight out at a 0 degree angle. Okay, so I've got circle centers and edges. So I'm going to take those 3, and I'm going to copy those. CO space. I'm going to copy them from the center of this circle down to the center of that circle, so I don't have to redo anything. Still got all the proper measurements. And now I'm going to draw the nose. Now from the end view, the nose is going to look rectangular. Remember, you can only see, you can't really tell that there's this curvature here. You can just see it from the side, and it looks like a rectangle. And how far back does that rectangle go? It goes 20 plus 21 is 41. And so if this is where the end of the nose is, let's draw that in. I already know that it starts here and stops there. So let's just draw that. So we grab the line tool and our object layer. And we know it starts there and it ends there. And we also know that it goes back 41, is what I said. So there's 41. Then I can do the same thing up here. Just be careful about my lines. That one should go back 41 as well. Good, and then we know we can connect those because we're going to see where the nose hits the other part. So we've just drawn this section right here as a rectangle, and we know there's a bolt hole in it. We can deal with that in a second. And we know that it runs into this larger cylindrical shape, so we can see that edge right there. And if I turn off my con lines, okay, so this is the part of the nose that's sticking out. Okay, we can't really tell it's rounded from this view. We know there's going to be a circle there, and we know it's going to attach to this object like so. Make sure the nose is always pointing toward the object when you're doing 2 views. And that's just because of the way that it would operate if you were to put this object in the glass box that we've discussed. If you were to put this in the glass box and you stamped to the front and you stamped to the right side of the box and folded it out, that nose is going to be the pivot point. So it's the back end that's going to swing out, which means the nose is going to point toward the left. That's why you want to have this nose pointing toward your front view. All right, let's see if we draw a little bit more on this part here. We know how thick this thing is. This thing is 21 thick, it says. Okay, so we can just draw that right in. We know where the top is. We should have some construction lines for that. Remember which one it is. Maybe we don't have construction lines for that. Well, let's draw some construction lines for that. I'll use this one, and I'll just go straight from the center to the top and then over so that I have height for that. And I'll do the same thing on the bottom. Straight from there, down to the bottom, straight across. And the other helpful thing to have would be, I need to know, oh, no, that's pretty much all I need actually. Go to my object layer, because I know it attaches to it here, right? So I can just go there and kind of go straight up. It's not gonna, there we go, straight up. And then all the way down to there. And I said it was 21 in width, so there, at the top and over. Okay, so now we're starting to get the general shape of this thing from the front view. taken care of this part. Now the rest of it is mostly just kind of holes and hidden lines and things like that. So let's do the rest of them then. We have 2 hemispherical cuts out of the back piece, the back cylinder there, and they are a radius of 10. So there it's an R10. You can assume it's the same thing at the bottom. Let's deal with that. So we have 2 cuts up here, R10. There's a bunch of different ways you could do this. I think probably the easiest way is just to create a circle and then trim it, but you certainly could use the arc tool or whatever else you find works. So I'm just going to draw a circle, and it was a radius of, I've forgotten already, 10. So our radius is 10, and then I'll just copy that circle down, paste that here. All right, and now we can just use the trim tool. Trim tool is pretty straightforward, and it's also pretty intuitive. If I cut up here, it's going to want to try to cut away anything that's on the other side of a line, so just make sure you kind of clean it up. And then don't forget, we also want to trim these 2 out because those will no longer exist. It's cut out of it. And we'll do the same thing down here. So we got to get rid of the top part, and then any part that accidentally intersects. We'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of that. And then we've got our 2 cut out features right there. Everything looks good. We need to bring those lines across this way so we can replicate the cut line here. Now, this is an interesting little factoid here. If you look, because we cut away the top of that rounded section, the original height we had is actually not quite accurate. If you're looking at this object from either the left or the right side, the end view, it's not going to go all the way up to this point. You're only going to see it up till there. Okay? And this gap here between this intersection and the blue line is now gone because we had to trim it out for this semicircle here. So what we actually need to do is we need to track this line back. Okay? We need to track this line back and redraw the line over here. Okay? So that's probably easiest done just by grabbing this construction line, going MO for move, and then grabbing the construction line anywhere. Oops, grab that line. MO for move. It's just M for move, isn't it? That's why. I think M for move, yeah. Then you can grab it from anywhere, and then you can just put it down there. It'll still be a horizontal line, and I'll have to do the same thing at the bottom because I chopped that piece out. So grab that. M space. Grab it from here. Put it there. Still horizontal, and you'll notice it kind of chops off a little bit, right? So it sort of chops this off. So what we need to do is we need to move this line down. So let's move that line down to here, and then let's trim those top 2 lines because those don't exist. And we'll do the same thing on the bottom. And we'll chop these 2. And then we'll just grab this line and move it. In space, grab it from this corner, attach it to that corner. Okay, so that corrects the height of the object. That's something that you might have missed if you were moving too quickly. I certainly might have missed it. But we've taken care of it. Now we need to know where this is because this is going to be hidden. We are going to know it's there, but we are not going to be able to see it. We can draw a line across to represent that, or we can just kind of take the shortcut. I don't know if it's a great practice, but as long as you're careful, you shouldn't run into too much trouble. So we'll go over the hidden line, and for the hidden line, we will just draw a line that starts here, ends there, and then we can just either trim or grab the corner, this line, and bring it back. Just make sure you don't accidentally change the angle. There. And now I could do that at the top too, but it's probably easier just to mirror it based on the center line. So I'm going to grab that and get MI to mirror it. My mirror line is just somewhere in the center, so there we go. Center of the object. Did what I always did, forgot to hit the space bar, or forgot to click the mouse. Mirror. Center line up. Click space, there we go. So we've got the top one handled as well, and we also know that we're going to need hidden lines for these windows. So these little holes. So let's grab those and bring those across. That's there. This one's going to cut through a bit of the object, but we'll deal with that in a second. So we don't need that line or that line. And we'll actually just trim the other line. So these circles only exist on this back plate, so we don't want any of these lines out here. Let's just trim using trim tool, and let's trim everything. Both side of there. Trim, trim. Actually click and drag to trim too. Click, drag, trim. Okay, good. We've got those. This is a center line. Let's just draw that center right now anyway. Okay, remember we go a little bit through when we're drawing a center line. So L, line tool. L, line tool. There we go. I'm going to draw this just a little bit beyond. And then I'm going to stretch that line and eyeball it. Try and get about the same distance of the front or back. It doesn't have to be perfect, but should be close when you eyeball it. Okay, I'm going to delete that blue center line, just kind of getting in my way right now. And I might as well mirror these down because I know there's a hole like this on the bottom. The question is, where does that hole start? I'm not going to mirror it actually, I'm going to copy it. So I've still got the center point, the center line of this hole right there. So if I copy it from that point there down, then it's going to be from the center and the edge of the object to the center and the edge of the object, which means it should be exactly the same. And then I can just get rid of this if I think it's getting in the way. And I'm confident that those two hidden holes are in the right spot. I don't need a center mark for this cutout section. It's just for full circular sections. Okay, so that's great. I have a bore, a square bore that goes, just a hole that goes all the way through the object. If it gives me a depth in this reading for this hole that goes through the middle, the square hole, then it would say DP, and that's just deep. And it's sometimes written out, you see on this other one here, it says slot 9 deep, and this one is 6 deep, so that slot goes in 6 deep. If it doesn't give you a depth measurement, you can make the assumption that this slot goes all the way through the object. So I don't see a depth measurement for that square feature, which means that it is going to go all the way through the object, which means it's just a hidden line because you can't see it from the end view, but you know it's there and you know it's rectangular in nature and it goes all the way through the object. Now this is a square bore, which is a little unusual. Most of the time you're going to have circular bores. But because it's dead center in the object, because it is a bore that goes all the way through, I'm also going to include a center line on this. Maybe not strictly necessary, but I think a good practice when you've got some sort of bore, make sure I get that right in the center, when you've got some sort of bore that goes all the way through an object. So I think I'm going to include that center line. I'm going to try and line it up vertically with those ones. So I've got a center line. This center line will go all the way through the object because it does go all the way through that nose section as well. So I want to make sure that my center line goes all the way through the nose. And then this, we know that this rectangular bore goes all the way through the object as well. So I'll just, when I'm trimming, I'm just going to take note of that, right? So those two have to go. Those have to go. These have to go. And these have to go. Oops. Come on. But remember, they hit the nose and they start at the nose and then go all the way through. So we've got quite a few hidden lines for our bolt holes here, but it's okay. So everything seems to be in a proper spot. Now we know we have a circle here. Where exactly does that hole go through the nose? It goes through 20 from the front, and it's right on the center line. So I've already got a center line here that I can use, but I do need to figure out where 20 from the front is. So I can just do that with any of my con lines. I haven't used the light blue yet, so maybe I'll just grab that one and I'll go and draw. Okay, so I just need to go back 20 units from basically anywhere. I'll go from here, as long as it's on the front of the object. It's 20 or 21? 20 units from the front of the object. So I'm going to go 20 units and, oops, 20 units. You're switching back and forth at Windows. Sometimes it cancels your commands. There's 20, and then I'll just go up, so make sure that it hits that center line. Okay, so I went over 20 and up until I got to the center line, and now I can draw a circle. And that circle is the same as the other 4. It is diameter 13. Remember, it's at 6 holes, and these are going to be the last 2. So that is going to be a 6, that's going to be a 13 diameter hole, so I'll go D13, and there we go. So there's that hole, and it goes right through to the other side. Now this one's going to look a little bit weird because I have a center line for the square bore going through the object, but I'm also going to have a center mark for this circle. So this one is going to look a little bit weird, and sometimes you got to use your judgment on these as to whether or not the lines you added are helping or hurting. And so I'm going to draw these. I'm going to draw this center mark, okay, and then I'm going to decide if I think it's worth it or not. I think I'm going to leave the long center mark, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this one that I made vertically, and I'm just going to extend this down through the bottom, and I think that'll look okay. Okay, so what have I got here? Now it looks a little bit awkward, and I'll show you why. If I turn off my blue line, just because of the way my line spacing is, it looks like it's kind of closer to this dash than this dash. So it might make sense for me to just sort of extend this just a bit more to see if I can get that looking a little bit better. And this is fine tuning, and it's strictly not, it's not strictly 100% necessary. I'm just trying to. Sometimes my desire for perfect symmetry gets me into trouble, but I think that's probably going to be okay. I just try to kind of even it up a bit in that gap so that it didn't look so silly. Another thing I could have done is I could have pulled it a little bit further from the back to try and get it in the middle of that dash. At this point, I'm not sure if I'm making it worse or better. Okay, that's a little better actually, because it looks like we've got an actual center mark now. And maybe I need to pull it just a little bit less, but it's pretty darn close. Again, now I'm just getting pedantic about it. How's that? Better? Yeah, it's still a little bit off. Ugh, sorry, I'm probably driving you crazy here. Search for perfection. Okay, that looks pretty good. That looks like a nice plus in the middle and center line. So that's pretty neat. I like that. I do need center lines for these ones as well. Might as well draw them while I've got the center line tool on. So I'll just draw one out the top, and then we'll use that polar array tool like we used before, right? You'll notice that my line type scale is not sufficient because I've got a long dash here. But because of the scale of my drawing, that long dash never gets separated into long, short, long. So what I'm going to want to do with this layer is I want to change the layer scale on it. And I think I can do it for all of them at once. I just have to make sure that I lock everything that I don't want affected by this, which is essentially every other line. Okay, so I've got every layer except for my CTR. So I'm going to grab all of these purple center lines, and then I'm going to go in properties, and then where it says line type scale, I'm going to manually type in 3 and see what that looks like. Maybe I have to do it one by one. I was hoping that would work. Okay, so this one is, let's try this as 2. That's better. See how I've got, the dashes are a little bit more, a little more visible now. So now I'm going to copy this one, and I'm going to array this using our array tool. And what do we want to array? We want a polar array based on that point, and I want 4 items. There we go. And let's just copy those, CO, from the center, click, to the center, to the center, and to the center. So that should give some nice center marks for those ones. And again, not strictly necessary, but because this is a bore, I think it does sort of deserve a center mark of its own. And typically when you do a center mark, you have to have it extend beyond the edges. So this one I might have to draw manually because it didn't quite reach the edge. So right in the middle there. Let's draw one out that way so it extends past the edge of the bore, and then do what we did before, polar array. Polar array is nice because then you're sure that all of those lines extend by the exact same amount. They're all the exact same length. Polar array, base point, items 4. There we go. Okay, so now what else are we missing? Probably some hidden lines. So we don't have anything from this running through the nose piece on the front view. So that's one thing that we haven't drawn yet. I'm just going to unlock all these layers. And what haven't I used a lot? Looks like lots of blue. Oh, have I already drawn that one? Nope, haven't drawn it. Green. I've got lots of space left for green. So I'm just going to draw some lines from the top. And you know what? I could just cheat this one. I can do this the way I've done the others. Hidden line. Grab the line tool. We'll go from there. And we know it goes all the way to the end of the nose piece. So let's go there. And this bore all the way through to the end. And then we'll trim it up. Trim tool. Gone. Okay, now it doesn't go through the edge piece, it only goes through the nose piece, which means that we need to trim these two as well. And looks like I need to extend this one. Not sure why I didn't go all the way up to the edge. I must have snapped on the wrong thing. Okay, now you will not see it. This is a hole, right? So you're not going to see, you're not going to need these hidden lines because it actually doesn't exist in that area, because it's a hole that goes from the front of the object to the back. So you can see the opening there. It's just blankness between, so we don't need a hidden line there. It's not hiding anything. So we should trim that as well on the inside of that square bore. Get rid of those. Okay, so that's that. Should probably include a center line, and it is not illegal just to continue your center line from your other drawing if you so wish. Yeah, so that's not too bad, although then I run into the same problem here where I've got to kind of fix that up a little bit. You could definitely draw it as two lines. It's not going to be an issue if you do, but you can also use the same line. Okay, so there, that, or alternatively, if you didn't like the look of that, you could just grab your center line and just draw in manually for this little bore section, which you know goes to there. And then I'll just stretch it out the other side, so grab it. Being careful not to grab the original center mark there, and bring it about that far outside. Okay, there we go. Now we've got all of our center points looking good. I seem to have a couple dashed lines there. I'm not sure what those are for. Must have accidentally done that at some point, but I don't recall there being any hidden lines in that section. Okay, so let's turn off hide our construction lines, and let's see what we think. All right, so let's look at our object. Can see nose, can see hole, can see this face, see that, can see nose, can see that bore, can see this face, can see through there. All the holes go all the way through. There should be 6 holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, and on the other side 6. They count it as 2 holes, even though essentially they're joined on either side of the nose. So that all looks good. I'll take a couple measurements. I'll make sure that's 20. I'll make sure that's 20. I'll make sure that both circles are at 45s. Okay, so this should be 20. Okay, so that's good. 20. This should be whatever this circle's a radius of. 13, that's good. And 20 back on the nose. From the end of the nose to this should be 41, I believe. Ooh, 40, that's not good. Oh, 41, good. Okay, 41, why is it a 0.08? Just because I didn't quite snap it right. Okay, see how it's 41.08? Yeah, it's super close, but it's not perfect. And it needs to be perfect. Lost my center line there. So I'm going to double check. It should be from this edge of the nose to the center of the circle. It should be 20 on the nose, and it is. And that means it should be 41 at that point right there. And it's 41.08. So somewhere along the way, I accidentally went too far. Oh, I can see it right here. Okay, I can see that little gap there. So I'm wondering which one's the right line. Okay, just a tiny little error, but I didn't see it until I zoomed in. Or is this line at an angle? It's at an angle. See how it's fine up here, but then when I get down to here, it's out. So whatever this line is, I accidentally put a tiny little bit of angle on it, and I didn't mean to. Okay, so now let's check that measurement again. I'm just going to use the measure tool for now. And browser's crashing, of course. Measure tool seems to take a lot of browser memory for some reason, which is why I tend to use the annotate feature for quick measurements. All right, let's see, is this still 40? Snap, 40.9989. That is supposed to be 41 on the nose. So how do we fix that? Well, first off, let's check and see if it's the same at the top here. From there to there should be 41 on the nose. It is 40.998 there. And then it is, no, it looks like it's 41 on the nose. Okay, and is it a bit out at the bottom? Sure it is. Okay, you see how it sort of angles out a bit at the bottom there? So there is a bit of an angle here somewhere because I accidentally drew a line on an angle and I didn't mean to. So let's troubleshoot this. That should be 90. All of these should be 90 exactly. If they're not, then there's a problem. This should be 90 as well. Good. Okay, so where is my problem? Just check and make sure these two are 90. There should be 90. And here should be 90. Yep, okay. So that everything checked out fine there. I'm just going to zoom in and make sure I didn't have anything else at a bit of an angle. And then everything should be fine. There should be exactly 41. 40.990. What's going on here? It's so minor, but I can't stress enough that things have to be perfect. I mean, it's just a fraction of a fraction, but it's there. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, maybe I'm just going to sync a couple construction lines and just see if there's any angles here that I'm missing. That's perfect. 90, 90. And then I'm going to zoom in really close and make sure that it's on the line here and all the way down. It should be on the line. If it ever moves off of the original white line, then it indicates that there's an angle there. But I'm not seeing anything. Everything looks to be lined up. I wonder if my browser is just a little confused after I made that one change. Everything seems to check out, so I'm actually going to call it okay. I don't see anything going offline. Everything seems to be perfectly square. So I think that might just be kind of a browser issue. Oh, everything looks okay. So measurements are working out. And what else do I need to know? I checked that one, checked that one. I can check my bolt centers. Let's check those. So that should be 74 in diameter. So it's 37. if it's 37 from this, any one of these circles to the middle, and that should be in good shape. So hopefully that reads out at 37, and it does. So that one's good. And that's pretty much all we needed to check. There's no rounds or fillets on any of these, so we don't need to do any rounds or fillets. Although I did note that the drawing that I asked you to complete for this section as your assignment does have fillets. So I'll draw your attention to that really quickly, just so that you don't accidentally miss it. After I fix this up a bit more. Maybe trying a bit too hard to make this perfect. I'll need to fix this later because that's bugging me. Or I can annoy all of you and fix it now. Perfect. Okay, so I think I'll call this one finished. I think I got all my center lines and everything looks really good. So now let's just check out how big our title block is compared to this. Title block needs to come down a little bit. So I'm going to just lock up everything. Unlock title block, grab title block, scale title block. Scale the title block. And I need to scale it down just a bit. So, something like that's pretty good, I think. Then the reverse, right? I'm going to lock this. I'm going to unlock the rest. And I'm going to grab everything, okay? Again, if you ever have to go back to fix a drawing and you've moved your final object off of your construction lines, it's a pain in the butt to get it back. You can do it, but it just takes a lot of moving and whatnot. So it's easier just to grab everything, including your construction lines. Hit M to move. You'll move all of it at once. Just grab the center point of your object, and everything's coming together. Construction lines, everything. Try to get it sort of roughly in the middle. And then you can hide your construction lines again. Leave your center line. Leave your hidden line. And pretty well centered, pretty well scaled. I think we're going to call that a finished. And I'm just going to draw your attention to the assignment one, because I believe the assignment one is, the practice is clutch cover, the assignment is flywheel support. So that's the practice. This is the one you hand in. I noticed the one that you hand in does not have fillets. This one does though. The fillets, remember, are just the rounded area. And in this case, you can see there's a round there, and then there's a round there. So you would need to incorporate a fillet of round 4, which you're not going to see on the front view, but you are going to see when you look at it from the end view. So you would see that little curve in there. But that's just your practice one. That same curve's right there, right? That's just your practice drawing, and it is a good practice. And this is the one you're actually going to hand in, is the flywheel support. Take note that it's just these, sort of a cross shape. These other circles are just bolt circles to help you find where that curvature should be and where that wing should be. And then also this one on the middle, on the inside, you'll notice they give you a measurement for that. And then there's a real bolt circle for all the bolts in each of these arms of this cross or whatever it is. So there's lots of information there, but just keep in mind the object itself is just this little sort of plus-shaped thingy. The rest of them are just dimension lines to show you bolt circles and how to create this object. If I think about it, the last time I created this, you can create just this chunk and then use polar array to complete the other 4. I don't know that it would save you a whole lot of time. It is an option. But I suspect most people, and I know the first time I did this one as well, you're going to build all 4 wings, or all 4 arms separately, and just make sure they're all the exact same dimensions. Okay, that should take you through the rest of the orthographics unit, and the next video is going to be on sectioning.